All right, let's call the meeting to order here. I'm Robert Fry, the acting chairman of the planning board. If you will help me open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I've asked Mr. Marshall will remain standing, offer our invocation for us.
As we come to the end tonight with this board, and with each member to bless
Thank you. All right, appreciate everyone being here. A couple little orders of business here as we get started. I do want to point out we have a number of new board members tonight. Some are not here at the moment, but I didn't know if Julie, you'd like to introduce yourself and just say something about yourself for the board here.
Yeah, I'm Eric Julian. Lived in Anger 16 years now, so yeah, I'm gonna help out, be on the planning board.
Welcome, good to have you. All right, and I believe we have 5 of the 7 members have a quorum.
We do.
All right, and then we can move ahead here. Should we do the election of the officers now?
Yeah, so we've got a couple
Yes.
of changes to the agenda.
Okay.
We need to do a swearing in of a couple of members, or at least Lee and Sam, right?
Nope, Sam and Robert, since
Sam
you
and
were
Robert,
reappointed,
okay.
we have
Okay.
to swear you back.
Okay.
All right,
So we can do that, and then we have appointment of chair and vice chair.
all right. You want to, well, either way. Do we need to stand, sit? I think I was standing
Whatever you prefer.
last
I could
time.
do at the same time.
Did we get to speak in unison? I mean, yes.
All right, raise your right hand.
All right.
I state your name.
I, Robert Fry,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
without favor or prejudice,
without favor or prejudice,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
according to the best of my skill and ability,
and according to law,
and according to the law,
as a member of the Town of Andrew Planning Board.
as a member of the Town of Andrew Planning Board.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thought you were trying to trip me up. Some of the sentences were a little long there, testing my memory some. All right. And we'll move on. Jeff, do you want to jump in there, or you want to go ahead and?
No, you can go ahead. So the next
Okay.
item that we've added to the agenda is the chair and vice chair appointment.
All right.
Just a reminder, make sure that whenever anybody speaks, make sure your mics are on.
Yeah, just push that button there, and you can turn it off if you're not going to be speaking as well. So we've had a couple folks. I've been chair 2 years now, and Haley, who rotated off, was the co-chair of this board, and she's no longer with us. But we got a couple of long-serving members. Lee's been serving a long time. Myron is now the other than myself, been serving a while. But I would nominate Myron Patterson to serve as chairman of the board. He would so do so.
I would nominate you as the chairman.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I guess we got a couple nominations. We typically just do like a vote of a show, vote with a show of hands essentially. But let's all in favor of Myron, if you want to raise your hand. Raise my hand. All right. I believe that is even if Lee votes in my favor, I'm not going to win that one, Myron. So congratulations to you. All right. And we have call for a nomination of co-chairman, and we'll open that up as well. I was going to nominate Sam Gregory. All right. All in favor of Mr. Gregory being co-chairman, raise your hand. All right. Looks like you have a unanimous vote there. All right. Congratulations to you. So, you want me to run out this meeting, or do you want me to just turn it over here?
That would be up to Myron.
You can go ahead.
I'll finish out the agenda here. Yeah, it's a little awkward when we're just getting things started and getting things going here. Plus, I sprang it on him tonight too, though. But
Yeah, you did.
he comes to all the town council meetings. Very well informed guy. Been on the board now 3 years, and we appreciate what he does. So he comes to more of the town council stuff than certainly than I do. So, but thank you. Congratulations to you guys. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the November 14th planning board minutes?
I make a nomination to approve the minutes.
All right, all in favor? Show of hands. All right, looks like that's unanimous. The minutes from the November 14th meeting are approved. Do we have a motion to consider the amended agenda? We've added a few items to it here as we've opened up, including the election of officers and things. A motion to approve the
I
agenda?
make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
All right, all in favor? Show of hands here. Looks like that's unanimous as well. All right, I think that's all for me, and I'll
Right.
turn it back over to you.
Okay, we've got a rezoning request that's along Kennebec Road. This is sort of out of town a little bit, so if you imagine this is the Wake County line right here, and these properties with the arrows here are currently in Wake County, and they're currently zoned by Wake County as R30. The request is to zone into the town of Angier for RA30. There is an annexation request that will be going before the town board at their March 5th meeting, and to set the zoning whenever and if ever the property is annexed into town, this rezoning is a result of that. So it's currently 16.76 acres. The staff report was a little bit wrong, but you're going to be rezoning 16 acres. Currently, this part right here of this parcel is in Harnett County and is within our zoning district. So part of this lot goes here and is already zoned R30.
Okay.
And then part of this lot, if you looked at the annexation plat, right around here, they're cutting that part out of this larger pie-shaped lot. So the result is 16.76 acres that's being requested to be rezoned into RA30. If and when this property is developed, there will be access off of Kennebec Road. This is Camden Place. It's a project that was approved probably back in 21. And there's a street that is being constructed now that intersects with this parcel here in this location. So there will be access from Camden Place into this property.
All the purple's already Harnett County.
The purple is town of Angier.
Mhm.
That's already in the town.
Okay.
This is Bellwood over here. This is train tracks, or used to be train tracks. As you can see, it's vacant now, agricultural uses, some medium density, low density residential in the area. Zoning compatibility, this is again R30 in Wake County, this yellow part here, and they're requesting to go to RA30, which is the equivalent in the town of Angier. This is the land use compatibility in the Wake County land use plan. They have this as community. I gave you all a little excerpt from the Wake County land use plan. And in Wake County, the community areas are lands already in municipal corporate limits or municipal extraterritorial jurisdictions, and lands on the fringe of these areas for municipalities to expand and grow into. Public utilities currently exist in the majority of the corporate limits area, and plan to extend utilities exist in other areas. So with this request, that is in keeping with Wake County's land use plan. Staff's recommendation is to approve the rezoning request to RA30, as it, again, is in keeping with the comprehensive plan for Wake County. And you all can go through the standard of review, A through D, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
Well, really, it's just switching the county jurisdiction over it with the zoning.
Yeah,
It's
so
zoning the same
it is.
R30.
It is. So we have an annexation that we're going through the process now. There's a public hearing on that annexation on March 5th. When that property comes into the town, if the town board agrees to annex that property, it needs zoning to be set with that. And R30, RA30 is the zoning that we're requesting.
So that would still be the low density agricultural?
It will, yes.
Yeah, it looks like maybe just one. It was a special use permit for churches in the new classification versus the old. Is that the only difference, I guess?
Yeah, I think that may have been the
But
only.
otherwise, it's really just putting it in our county's jurisdiction.
That's right.
Same zoning, called RA30 here versus
R30.
R30 in Wake County.
That's right.
Any discussion?
If it's okay to ask, I guess Wake County's okay with this, or was there a process for?
There isn't a process for Wake County to weigh in on annexations. So this was in our statutory limits of annexation, and we can annex land where this one just happens to fall in Wake County area.
And this would be homes and townhouses? They have a plan?
That's a potential of what could go there in R30, and we'll talk a little bit more about multifamily and townhomes in the next agenda item.
So they have no plan so far where they're going to put house and townhouse?
Not that we've been submitted to, no. But that's Camden Place, which is the adjacent project, is a PUD, and so it has townhomes and single family. The thought could be that Camden Place could extend into this newly annexed area.
Probably likely that it would be a rezoning request
Yeah.
once it comes into Harnett County,
Yeah.
if they're going to build on it, I suspect.
And if it's
So it is interesting to think ahead on that.
and if it is R30, then a PUD is a special use permit currently in R30 that they could come in and do single family, smaller lot single family and townhomes.
All right, any other discussion? And if you want to, we can turn to our standards of review. If anyone has their packet there, I printed mine, it's page 5 of 5. And we'll run through these. I got that is the right one there. All right, we'll go through and look at these A, B, C, and D, and we'll vote on each one separately. Is that how you want to do that, Jeff, or do you want just a group
Yeah,
concept?
you just gotta get a consensus from the group. If
All right.
you see where one may be, where you need to talk a little bit about that, then you can do that. But you don't really have to vote after each one. You can just sort of get a consensus.
All right, I'm going to read through starting with A here under the standards of review. The proposal will place all property similarly situated in the area in the same category or in appropriate complementary categories. Yes or no? All in favor of yes? Anyone opposed? All right. One abstaining? Oh, you did, said yeah, okay, all right. Yeah. All right. B is, there is convincing demonstration that all uses permitted under the proposed district classification would be in the general public interest and not merely in the interest of the individual or small group. Everyone good on that? Any objection? That good. The yes. All right, C, there is convincing demonstration that the character of the neighborhood will not be materially and adversely affected by any use permitted in the proposed change. Yeah, it's keeping the very same, virtually the very same Zoning is at hand. All right, that's a yes as well. No objection to that. All right, and D, the proposed change is in accordance with the comprehensive plan and sound planning practices. Everyone on board with that?
Yeah.
All right, that's a yes to that. So that is unanimous, and motion to grant the rezoning request upon finding that the rezoning is reasonable based on all of the above findings of fact A through D being found in the affirmative, and that the rezoning advances the public interest. All right, rezoning is granted.
Right. Well, you were making a recommendation.
Recommendation, yes,
So we will.
town council will.
Yeah, we'll have a public hearing at March 5th, and then they'll make a decision based off of your recommendation and staff's recommendation. All right. Moving on to our next agenda item. So this is a result, this next agenda item is to talk about residential development in the town of Anger, specifically multifamily development and PUDs. On January 16th at the town board's workshop in January, the staff presented to the board an overview of current, sort of more recent residential projects and how those came about, and sort of where we are in the review process with some folks. So this is our future land use plan. From analysis that staff conducted, we can see that most of the area in this yellow is medium density residential. Medium density residential is usually that 3.5 to 4.5 units to an acre. You would have some higher density areas in this orange, these in Wake County, and then this swath of purple along the future bypass is mixed use. So the future land use plan sort of is if for a residential component is set up for medium density. And you get further out of town in this area through here, right on the edge of town, that's low density residential. And so that would be, 2 to 3 units to an acre for the most part is what the land use plan calls for. Here's a review of subdivisions that we've approved, whether, in recent years, in various stages of approval or proposed or under construction.
Jeff, can I stop you just?
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
Charlie, you mentioned PUD.
Uh-huh.
And would this be a good time to define what that is and just tell us?
No, that's
Or
that's
do you
good.
want to keep moving
No,
with that?
That's fine. A plan unit development is where a developer would come in and be able to do, as the ordinance would say, something innovative, something unique that has different residential components, like a townhome component, residential densities, townhomes, single family. It could include commercial, it could include industrial. So it's a planned development where they kind of come in and set their own zoning. So it differs from zoning standards that you would see in the ordinance.
Well, it sort of allows them to bypass certain rezoning approvals, right? Or am I wrong? Is that
It does.
if they do it a certain way?
Yeah, it does. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, I was just-
when we
Because that's one of those things that were going on when I came on the board. It was like, well, they can set up these developments if they do it a certain way and really sort of bypassed. We never really had a really good examination of that or even definition. I appreciate
Right.
that. And I just wanted to mention that because I know that was in the materials.
Yeah.
Thank you for going over that. And I am curious about the neighborhoods too.
Yeah. So what we found is, I'll get to this point. So since 2020 to today, we have gotten, we've approved or under review essentially 4,000 units, single family 2,500, roughly 1,000 or so townhomes. This color-coded key over here is where the lots are all recorded, construction's underway, site work is underway, preliminary plat is under review. So these are some of the ones that are currently in construction, and we haven't approved any lots. So you can kind of see that the town has approved in the, in recent years, 3,600 new lots, whether it be single family or townhomes. And our evaluation from, if we go back to, here, what we found in our evaluation is that a lot of the projects that have been recently approved don't necessarily meet the land use plan for medium density. We're getting a little bit more higher density projects through that PUD process. So if you can see on the key over here, they have PUDs written beside them.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Now-
Spring Village, Camden Place, I mentioned that one earlier. Honeycutt Oaks is a PUD. Myrtle Manor's PUD. White Oak Crossing. These are all very recent, within the last 2 years, projects that have went through the process. Part of the evaluation process that the board wanted to know was what type of development are we getting in town? Really, we kind of can feel what's being developed in the real world, smaller lots. And so this kind of bears that truth, is we're getting projects that are probably in the 5,000 to 6,000 square foot lot range, instead of the 10,000 to 15,000 square foot lot range that a medium density project would have the town develop in. So, at the 16th workshop, presented this to the board. The board was also kind of given some short-term action items and some long-term action items to sort of consider. Short-term action items are to evaluate the plan development section of the ordinance and evaluate multifamily regulations in the ordinance. That's where you all will come into play, because any changes to the ordinance have to be would come with a recommendation from the planning board. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that tonight, and then long-term action items are to update the comprehensive master plan. So that goes back to that overall town, where medium density, high density, mixed use, where all that's going to be. So update the comprehensive plan, and then update the town's zoning ordinance in relationship to the comprehensive plan that may be adopted. Long-term action items are things that would probably take a year or more once they get started. So I know in the new budget for 24-25, we're going to put in for to update the comprehensive plan. So that could start in summer and then take a year or so to get that updated. So those are a little bit longer. But what can we do to sort of make sure that the town gets the types of development that we want? So what we've seen is that these PUDs and townhome communities are special use projects in the zoning ordinance. Special uses are considered by the Board of Adjustment, not necessarily the town board or by the planning board. So you all don't even really get to see those types of projects, because you don't. So there's no recommendation from you all to the Board of Adjustment on a project that may be 300 units, and because a special use process is a quasi-judicial process that really is run like a courtroom. So you have to have findings of fact, testimony, and so that's why we only go to the Board of Adjustment for those decisions. I'm not sure that's what the board and the town had envisioned whenever projects of 250, 180 lots or townhomes would come to town. I kind of think the planning board would want to make some recommendations on projects, and that it would not follow a rigid special use process. Because essentially, if the developer meets the standards of the ordinance for special use, the Board of Adjustment is compelled to give that permit to the applicant.
Is the ordinance unique to Angier, or is it a statewide regulation?
So the process is statewide. That's legislation of what we have to do. The ordinance is unique to Angier as to what qualifies as a special use permit, and then what regulations would need to be met to issue a special use permit. So that's sort of where we are with that.
I had a question. You had mentioned earlier that the developments, the zoning has kind of gotten not out of whack. I can't remember how you phrased it, but like, is it essentially that you've got 30 acres and you put in like dense lots, and but you have a large section of that 30 acres that's undeveloped, and so is it kind of
I think
one of those things, or
what's gotten a little out of whack is, so the R30 that you all are recommending for approval or to rezone this property on the item before, they could come in and develop, ask for 5,000 square foot lots. That doesn't with a PUD process, that really doesn't give the neighbors a chance to voice an opinion about that type of development. If you live beside a R30 zone property, you might think, well, these are going to be 30,000 square foot lots, which is a little over a half acre, a little less than an acre. So you as a prospective homeowner or property owner, you see the zoning map, you see a lot of R30 around you, around where you're going to buy, you think, well, this is going to be large lot development. Well, that's not necessarily the case. What we're seeing is that there's properties zoned R30 that has R6 or R5, 5,000 square foot lots being proposed, and then townhomes on top of those, which townhomes would be 2,500 square foot lots.
so are developers able to do that? So you put the small lots, but then you have like a large gathering area. Is that how they kind of get around that, or how does that work? I guess.
No, we do have an open space ordinance, so 20% of that larger development would need to be open space.
Yeah.
But that can consist of walking trails. It's not necessarily a green space.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if they would take it on the average of, you got small lots, but then if you do the average, it
That would
averages
be
out
something
to.
akin to a conservation subdivision, and we don't
Oh, okay.
necessarily have that yet in Angier.
But there are certain marks they hit within the ordinance, statewide and locally, that
Yeah,
bypass what we're doing here.
right.
I was going to say, we didn't really see those, and I was aware, at least, and no one has ever really talked directly, at least to me, about those, but I was aware that there was a bypass method, which is what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But even the ones we've been seeing here the last few years, I mean, they're leading with like R7 stuff less than R10.
Right.
And I've seen that even in the town council meetings sort of be debated, like all these developers want something less than R10. R10's already pretty small, right? I mean,
yeah, you're usually getting like 4 units to an acre in R10.
and I felt like it seemed like there was a level of comfort with that. And then some of these developers were pushing for R7, right? Is what I've seen a lot.
7,000 square foot and less. I mean, through some of the analysis of recent subdivisions, we've got 4,600 square foot lots, 4,800 square foot lots, 5,000 square foot lots. Yeah, that's the reality of what we have been getting from a single family standpoint of recent projects through that plan development process, which kind of bypasses the full planning process because it bypasses you all. It sort of gives the Board of Adjustment less latitude, the town board less latitude to say yes or no to projects.
Now, would that be preferred? Would they prefer to have that other than
Who's they?
the town?
The town, that process is good if you're wanting development to occur quickly and through, as easy as possible. Developers might like it because they can come in and say they don't have to go through a rezoning process. A rezoning process is legislative, so the board can say yes or no to that a lot easier than they can the special use process. Because when you rezone property, you look at comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan says, well, this is supposed to be medium density, but you're wanting 5,000 square foot lots. How does that work? That's where the town board could make those evaluations on a rezoning case. When you go to a special use process and it's very regimented, it has to be testimony by professionals that the applicant has hired or the town, and there's certain criteria that has to be met. And if the applicant meets those criteria, for the most part, the Board of Adjustment has to say yes. So that sort of creates a less latitude for the town to say no to certain projects. And that's for PUDs and for townhomes, which in our evaluation, there are certain townhome projects, when you get over 20 units, falls into that special use process too. So again, there may not be someone may be proposing 200 townhomes in an area that was supposed to be medium density. 200 townhomes doesn't feel medium density, especially if they've developed the property all the way to the max and not left open space. So those densities can climb well beyond a medium density level. So that's sort of the reality of the last few years in Anger. And, so what can we do about that? How do we sort of gain back more control and be able to say yes or no to certain projects? One of those would be a big way to do that is to remove that special use process and make it more legislative, either through creating a separate zoning district that folks would zone into for multifamily projects or for higher density projects, like a mixed residential district, because most of these PUDs are townhomes and single family. So if we had a zoning district like mixed residential that a developer would have to zone into, the criteria for the town to say yes or no to would be lowered. And we could say, no, we don't really want to develop in that part of town in that dense of a way today. So we could tell that developer no, and they would have to go back and redo their plans or, do something different or wait for that development to occur. So we could remove the special use process from planned developments and townhomes when they're over 20 units in that townhome project. Town also has a conditional zoning district that we can utilize a little bit more, which is sort of like a PUD, where the town sets certain criteria for zoning districts, but then you work with that developer in the town to come up with conditions that would be unique to that project. So that's removal of the PUD process and the special use process, I believe, is where the town is wanting to go, so that we can gain some more control back on those types of projects. Not to say that projects that we are currently getting, the town won't continue to get. We just may be able to evaluate that project a little bit more closely and be able to get things that we would want to see through the conditional zoning process.
Yeah, I like that because it is bypassing, our process where we have a chance to consider it here.
Yeah.
Public can be here, and then of course it goes to the town council as well.
Right.
But I think we've struggled because those has been on the board a few years. I mean, you can tell they would like to get as few, as many, houses on a lot as they can.
Right.
And they would like to shrink that. R10 used to be pretty small, and they're really dipping below that. And I almost felt like it was to the point where it was like, wait a second, y'all want to go less than R10. R10 ought to be pretty sufficient, but many times the ones presented here lately, and I'm not saying they're bad developments,
Yeah.
but they're all aiming for less than R10.
Yeah.
I think virtually all of them have
Yeah,
been.
through our analysis, there was no R10 developments that have been built or constructed in recent years. They've all been R6
Mhm.
or PUD projects.
Well, I appreciate the town looking at that. And I think we struggled a little bit with that because I think if you look at other towns like Fuquay particularly, which has grown sort of before us, a lot of them are, pretty tight lots there too. And that seems to be, and some people like that. And again, you have to consider that as well, but it is a struggle between, that having bigger lots and more space or a lot smaller lot size. So it's worth considering.
Yeah, definitely the market for housing has changed over the years where folks don't mind having smaller lots. They don't want to maintain lots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a change to not only Anger but everywhere. As you mentioned, Fuquay has developments that have similar style lot sizes. That's just the market that we live in right now. But what we would like to do is sort of take and sort of craft some language in the ordinance that kind of gives the town a little bit more control over those types of developments. When we have rezonings, especially conditional zonings, you all will start seeing master plans that go along with rezoning packages. So you would see an overall master plan of a project before you gave a recommendation on that rezoning. So when someone comes in and says, well, I would like to rezone to, mixed residential, you all would see how the lots would lay out, the number of lots, the townhomes, if they're going to be townhomes, open space, you would see all that. And part of that evaluation of that project and making a recommendation, you can evaluate the master plan along with it. So I think there was a question on the rezoning tonight that we had prior is, well, what could happen there? Well, if we have a conditional zoning process, you would, in a master plan process, you would see that would go along with the rezoning. And so you all would be able to be more empowered to give a fuller recommendation on a potential project in town.
So I guess to help myself understand a little better, and maybe others out there, so right now, if somebody wants to do a PUD, they just, no matter what the land is right now, they can come to your office and say they want to apply specifically for what's considered a PUD.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that a PUD can be applied for in R30, R20, or R15, R10, R6. The zoning really doesn't matter at that point, because through a plan development process, they're setting zoning. So the way the town has sort of thought of their ordinances and plan developments is that through a special use process is the appropriate way to do that in the past. That was how it was in the past. I can tell you the adjacent Lillington, Fuquay, Holly Springs, they all have separate zoning districts, like an R10, R30, commercial district. They have a mixed residential, a neighborhood mixed residential, or neighborhood commercial that people would zone into, and then from that zoning, they either do a conditional zoning or they meet the parameters of that actual zoning district. So it gives the public and you all a little bit more say in that process.
So, because it sounds like through nobody's necessarily their fault that's around now or was around before. It's just there's not a lot of hoops right now to jump
Right.
through if somebody wants to do a PUD, and it
Right. So, we at one point in time, Andrew wanted to grow and grow quickly and allow things to occur with not less oversight, but just a different type of oversight. And that was what the special use process afforded developers to do. Changing that from a quasi judicial decision to a legislative decision will bring in not only you all, but more of the public and their opinions.
So if I don't know, a developer were to use a special PUD,
Uh-huh.
so once they start developing a lot or the land, so could you, the town, I guess what I'm asking is, could it be changed
Well,
after?
things that we've approved that's on the record, they're building, we necessarily would not change.
You wouldn't,
those,
okay.
no. But moving forward, we know Andrew's going to grow, and we're going to have new developments, new residential developments. How does that process to approve those developments need to be? And that's what we're asking. That's what the town board's asking you all to evaluate and staff to evaluate. And so, what I can tell you is that we're going to take a look at the ordinances. I've already started sort of crafting some things to bring to you all at the next meeting. Some changes to the ordinance. I'll show you some drafts, and it could be bigger changes, or it could be just slight changes to the ordinance that allows us to have a little bit more say in the process.
With the changing of the ordinance, would that deter any developer from wanting to build? I mean, would you think,
No.
I guess what I'm asking, if you put the ordinance together and present it to them?
So I mentioned Lillington,
Mhm.
Fuquay, and Holly Springs, all having separate zoning districts that developers zone into to do development. All three of those towns are developing quite extensively, have been for years.
Okay.
Lillington probably has over 10,000 lots on the books today. So no, I don't think it will. They'll just have to do a different process, and they would understand that.
Well, I appreciate the presentation. It helps kind of, I think all of us get a better understanding of that. And those of us who've been watching it have been seeing that struggle a little bit between those two things as well. I haven't been as aware of the PUD stuff because it doesn't come here.
Right.
And even with us sometimes, you're like, it seems like a good development, it is residential, but you've seen so much of that R6, R7, and really it's ultimately, I think, the town council's call. And like we approved one near the elementary school down 210, and the town council called it back.
Yeah.
And that's what that process is for.
Right.
And it's nice that we may have more of that, I suppose, more chance to evaluate it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, we're evaluating the ordinance now. We're kind of going through. I've started the process of doing some track changes into the ordinance. I will present those items to you all at our March meeting. And then if you feel comfortable with some of the suggested changes, then you can make a recommendation, and the town board will then hold a public hearing at their April meeting. I think it's their April 2nd meeting, and then from there, they can either approve the ordinance or they can send it back to you all for more changes. But I think this is in the right direction for us to sort of evaluate and maybe make some changes on how residential development occurs.
Is this a process that would potentially make a PUD non-existent in the future? New PUD projects?
Yes, new PUDs would go away. So there would be specific zoning districts that a PUD-like development would zone into or utilize the conditional zoning process.
But it's possible you could get it into a process where it's conditional and there's more say and oversight from
Absolutely.
everybody that
Yeah.
cares and
That's right.
has a dog in the fight, if you will.
Right, right.
Okay.
It's tough when the Board of Adjustment meets and they have a room full of citizens, and the citizens are told they can't really express an opinion, it has to be factual to how their property is going to be impacted. And most citizens don't have the resources or the wherewithal to hire experts to come speak on their behalf. That's what the special use process is set up for. When we reverse that and go back to a more legislative, you can bring in opinions about a development and use those opinions to make a decision. The board, you all can make a recommendation, and then the board can make a decision based off of all the facts that staff has, what the land use plan has, and yes, opinions. Opinions do matter. And so that process will bring all that back in.
So you're saying public can give input at the Board of Adjustment meeting in relation to a PUD, but it has to be, they have to bring fact-based
They do.
evidence and
Yeah.
material or people
Yeah.
pertaining specifically to,
At a Board of Adjustment for a quasi-judicial decision, when you speak before the board, you have to be sworn in and give testimony. It's quasi-judicial. It's like a courtroom, and the board sits as the judge, and there's testimony, and you can cross-examine witnesses and things like that. We want to kind of go away from that and go to a more legislative where opinions matter on projects.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeff. Very informative, and we'll be on the lookout for that as it
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah, we'll bring some changes, both to the PUD process, and then we'll evaluate the townhome process as well. Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, any other old business?
Not today.
All right, if not, do we have a motion to close the meeting? Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
All right, all in favor? All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, board.
Thanks, everyone.